In this video, I'm going to be introducing the overbrushing technique and how I painted a Chaos Knight Desecrator almost without using an airbrush.
That the entirety of the cosmos is accessible through each and every individual's mind, connecting to the great mind, the great spirit.
Welcome back to the channel, collectors. So I'm really excited to show you guys this technique which I've been practicing and trying to develop over some time. I've been trying this on this Chaos Knight and I've painted the entire Chaos Knight with very little airbrush. The only time I used the airbrush was towards the end where I decided to do some environmental lighting. However, you can totally skip the airbrush part and you can create a really awesome paint job. You guys know me, I won't stop at a basic paint job, so I really want to take this to a really high level just by using overbrushing. So the concept of this Chaos Knight that I painted is I was trying to follow the concept art for the cover on the codex, as you guys can see. Comparing side by side, it's pretty similar, but it's not 100%, but I was trying my best to copy it as best as possible. Started using this overbrush technique because I wanted to create a more seamless flow in my painting process. In the past, I was using airbrush and brush. So because I was using airbrush, I had to set up a compressor, I have to use the airbrush, and I felt that it was disrupting the flow of my painting process. I was trying to create this painting process where I just need to sit down, focus, and start painting and have as little interruptions as possible. Hence, I wanted to see how I can cover more area to create more interesting textures as quickly as possible. And I discovered overbrushing, and I think it was a life changer for me. So in this series, I'm painting a Chaos Knight Desecrator using the overbrushing technique. I'll be uploading videos from Mondays to Wednesdays and on Sundays for this Chaos Knight Desecrator. And you can check out the rest of the videos in the playlist in the description below. So I've talked a lot about overbrushing, but what is overbrushing? So I discovered overbrushing a while back when I was painting Ghazghkull Traka's armor. When I was painting Ghazghkull Traka's black armor, I was using a relatively small brush. I was using a size 2 Da Vinci to try to create this scratchy technique. However, now I've progressed onto a really large brush and I can really cover large areas really fast and really quickly, and you guys can do it too. Just look at how I finished the entire frame of the Knight in slightly under an hour. It's entirely possible. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about what you will be needing for overbrushing. First and foremost, you'll be needing an arsenal of large stencil brushes. I got these stencil brushes at a really good price at the local art store. Just remember, because overbrushing is a really messy technique, you'll be needing to wash your brushes on a daily basis, even between colors sometimes. However, because these brushes are synthetic, they can take really aggressive soaps, so you can get these paints out as quickly as possible. The paints which I'm using for this series is mostly Vallejo Model Color and Chimera paints. I found that these paints are really good because they have a really nice and high opacity and they create a really smooth finish even though I was overbrushing them pretty thickly onto the model. The third thing you will need for this overbrushing technique is an ordinary kitchen sponge. I find this ordinary thick kitchen sponge particularly good because it retains some moisture while being able to thin down the paints on this sponge. So the process of overbrushing would be to use the large stencil brush to pick up some of the paint and then have a little bit of water on the sponge. Thereafter, what I do is I dab the entire huge stencil brush on the sponge to remove the excess paint. At the same time, because the sponge is wet, it's picking up some of the moisture and thinning down the paints. Next, I'm gonna be cleaning the brush on my hand to make sure that there's not too much excess paint on the brush, because the paints are now quite moist and wet. You don't want too much paint onto the model. Having too much paint onto the model tends to create some textures on the surface which will really show in the later stages. So you want to keep the paints thin and have as little paint deposited on the model as possible. Next, we'll start to stipple and brush the paint onto the model. I use two different techniques. I tend to stipple when I want to create large areas, as you guys can see on the Chaos Knight frame right here. I'm just stippling in a fashion where how I would normally highlight a model using the concepts of value. So for this Chaos Knight Desecrator, I'm having a top left lighting and I find that it creates a really contrasty Rembrandt style lighting and I like it a lot. Next, I'm going to talk about some important concepts and some tips and tricks of how you can improve your overbrushing technique. So these tips and tricks will make your overbrushing technique even smoother and you make the miniature pop even more. The first tip that I will give you guys would be to understand values and how to use them in geometric shapes. understanding values is a very important concept, and you shouldn't just be overbrushing the model all over because you just look like a mess. You want to know where to overbrush and place the highlights, and you can understand this from watching the understanding value video right here. In this video, I go through how I break the miniature into geometric shapes and I highlight them accordingly, which I find an essential technique for all miniature painters. Secondly, I would like to emphasize the use of a moist sponge. The use of a moist sponge creates a very nice and smooth finish, and it makes the transition a lot smoother. The next use for this is to reduce the chalkiness associated with dry brushing. As you guys can see with dry brushing, the finish is usually pretty chalky, and with a little bit of moisture in the paint, it really smoothens it out and reduces the chalkiness of dry brushing. So in this series, I use a lot of washing and shading. Of course, there are many videos out there teaching you guys how to make gallons of washes. However, I'll be using exclusively GW washes and shades for this entire series. I find that the GW washes and shades tend to create a very nice and smooth finish, and I like it a lot because washing the entire overbrush miniature actually smoothens out the surface, which readies it for the next stage. By the way, this wasn't paid by GW at all. And most importantly for this technique, you need to really believe in yourself and be brave. You gotta be confident and just give this technique a try. This technique is not exclusively used for just large figures like the Chaos Knight Desecrator. What you can do is you can scale it down, and you can even paint smaller miniatures such as you guys can see in the Ragnar Blackmane. So in the Ragnar Blackmane videos, except the head, I've painted the entire miniature mostly using this overbrush technique, and I've gotten many questions of what is this technique. Hence, I'm creating this series of videos so that I can showcase the overbrushing technique. The best part about this technique is it also creates really smooth transitions, and you can use it for a variety of things. You can use this overbrushing technique for terrain, vehicles, and many other things in your favorite hobbies. This technique to me is just so fast and so efficient, and I can imagine and picture myself finishing my entire backlog of miniatures. So in the next video, I'll be demonstrating how to use this overbrush technique on painting the Chaos Knight Desecrator's internals. This internal frame, I've made it extra contrasty and extra shiny, so I hope you check it out in the next video. So in summary, overbrushing technique is really super fast and super efficient, and it creates this really high contrast look and makes the miniature really pop. I hope you guys will be able to try this overbrushing technique and let me know the results and let me know what you think about the overbrushing technique in the comments below. I want to take this opportunity to thank my patrons for allowing me to do this, and with their support, I'm able to paint and create these videos so that everybody gets to become a better painter together. If you want to support the channel, please do head on to our Patreon, links in the description below, and become a patron today. In this series, the exclusive video would be how to take overbrushing to the next level using this gold non-metallic metal. I'm gonna show you guys a little bit more tips and tricks so that you can even paint small little details using overbrushing. However, if you can't become a patron, that's okay too. I'd like to thank you for watching to the end, and if you can help the channel even further, do like and subscribe and drop me a comment of what you'd like to see me paint. This really helps the channel grow, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. See you!